did describe them as impulsive. So they're willing even to sacrifice their own futures to the pleasure of the moment. But there was obviously a subset of psychopaths who delighted in being cruel. And the standard explanation of callousness, say, which is merely lack of empathy, didn't seem to be enough, right? Because it isn't merely that people are lacking empathy. It's that sometimes there are people who take a positive delight in cruelty, and that there's a new term that's used to describe online mobbing behavior or bullying behavior, troll behavior, which is lulls, right? I just did it for the lulls, which is the plural of LOL, laugh out loud. And to do it for the lulls is to go after someone on the net, often anonymously, merely for the purpose of making them miserable and wretched and put them in pain, just so that you can enjoy that. And certainly that's not mere psychopathy, right? That's not mere impulsiveness. There's an additional component that's worth concentrating on.
All right, so you covered a lot of ground there. Picking up on the argument for psychopaths being impulsive, just to remind viewers who are not that familiar with evolutionary theory, the simple argument is you got to get mates to maintain your genes in the gene pool. And there are many ways of doing that, right? One is to grab and run with whatever you want, using force if necessary. That will sometimes get you mates. More strategic Machiavellians find ways of manipulating others to get their genes into the gene pool. Narcissists seem to attract mates, partly because of their confidence, even if it is overconfidence. Sadists are a little harder to see. Why would being sadistic get you romantic and sexual partners? Well, I think I touched on the only explanation that I could think of, and I think you mentioned it too, and that is, well, you scare off your competitors, and you even scare off your mate into doing what you want by hurting them, and in a very public way. So you're deterring reactions from other people, and that may be of benefit in some circumstances. And then you went into the niche theory, or niche, as some people say. Yeah, there's a lot of niches out there for dark personalities. Each one may require very select kinds of traits, but if you want a job as an enforcer and on a hockey team, you better damn well be able to, and willing to, and like to hurt other people.
It also might be, so I know someone quite well, so I talked to him. He was often hired by corporations to fire people. And he's a very disagreeable person, but he's very high in conscientiousness, eh? So I was talking to him at one point in my lab because I was struggling with a few students and who I eventually let go. And I really realized that I probably had kept them in the lab longer than I should have, and that their poor performance was demotivating some of the people in my lab who were very high performers, and just producing a decrement in the overall quality of our work. And part of the reason I think I failed to take action is because I am a rather agreeable person, and I find firing people, let's say, very distasteful. And so I talked to my associate, my friend, about firing people, and he said, I enjoy it. And I said, that really surprised me. And this is someone I admire and respect, very competent person, by the way. I said, well, why is that? He said, well, I go into corporations and I ferret out the people who are kissing up and kicking down. I ferret out the narcissists. I ferret out the people who, as I alluded to, take credit when they haven't done anything and cast aspersions on others when they have done something, and who are clearly not doing their job. And then also, I go after people for whom it would be better in some real sense to be off doing something else. And his continual pattern of employment for multiple years, because he was particularly good at this, was he'd go into a corporation that was failing and start to fire people at the bottom and then climb the hierarchy. And then when he got too close to the top, they'd fire him, of course. But, you know, it was really interesting to me because it's also possible that some of these traits, the more psychopathic traits, have a positive utility socially, even speaking morally, when they're combined with other personality traits, right? But that are particularly, like maybe it's not so bad to be low in agreeableness if you're high in conscientiousness. But maybe it's really bad to be low in agreeableness if you're really high in neuroticism or really low in conscientiousness. And so you could see that tilt towards less empathy, which might make you capable, for example, of enforcing rules, might be, well, as I said, might be extraordinarily useful, even pro-socially under some circumstances, but very pathological under others.
Yeah, there's a movement now, I think, to question the absolute positivity of empathy. This fellow Bloom from Yale University, I'm not sure if you haven't interviewed him yet, you should, because he points out the overuse of empathy or inappropriate use of empathy, like letting a stranger into your door is a simple example, but having traits that make you overreact, say, to blood and guts, is going to prevent you from being a surgeon. You've got to be able to get your knife in there and slice people up, and to some extent ignore them if, well, up to a point, if they're complaining.
Right.
But yeah, so there are jobs in which too much empathy is going to impede your ability to success. So he goes through a lot of examples like that. I suppose one of the first things they do at boot camp is to try to impose certain kinds of motivations in soldiers that are joining the army, and make sure they understand that if you don't kill first, they're going to kill you, or they're going to kill your buddies. And that should be the way you think when you're in a war. And if you don't have that ability to reframe your normal, gentle personality, then you're in the wrong place.
Right. Well, and it's clearly the case that people who are very high in trait empathy, so very high in agreeableness, they are easy to take advantage of. And they also tend to become resentful and bitter. At least that's been my clinical observation, because it's very difficult for them to stand up for themselves, right? And so